My name is Ella, and this is the story of how I made a really big mistake. But before I tell you about that, I need to tell you about my friends, because without them, none of this would have happened. Have 5 best friends. Well, 4 best friends and 1 boyfriend, but we're all so close that it feels like we're one big group. We've known each other since college, and we've been through a lot together. Good times, bad times, and everything in between. Let me tell you about them. First, there's Ryan. Ryan is the kind of guy everyone notices. He's tall, with messy brown hair, and a smile that makes you feel like you're the most important person in the room. He's funny, charming, and always knows how to make people laugh. But sometimes he can be a little too much. He likes to push boundaries, and he doesn't always think about how his actions affect others. Still, he's one of my closest friends, and I love him like a brother. Then there's Chris. Chris is the quiet one. He has short black hair and glasses, and he's always reading or listening to music. He doesn't talk much, but when he does, it's always something thoughtful. Chris is the guy you go to when you need advice or just someone to sit with you when you're sad. He's been there for me more times than I can count. Next is Jake. Jake is the funny one. He's always making everyone laugh, even when things are tough. He has curly blonde hair and a big goofy grin. But sometimes I wonder if he uses jokes to hide how he's really feeling. Jake's been in a rocky relationship for a while, and I think it's been hard on him. Then there's Liam. Liam is the dependable one. He's the guy who always shows up when you need him. He has dark hair and kind eyes, and he's always talking about how much he loves his girlfriend. But lately, I've noticed he seems a little off, like something's bothering him, but he won't talk about it. And finally, there's Daniel. Daniel is my boyfriend. We've been together for 3 years, and he's one of the kindest people I know. He's smart, hardworking, and always tries to do the right thing. But lately, things between us haven't been great. He's been so busy with work that I feel like we're drifting apart. I've tried talking to him about it, but he just says he's tired and needs to focus on his career. So that's my group. Ryan, Chris, Jake, Liam, and Daniel. We're like a family, and I love them all so much. But sometimes even families have problems. And sometimes those problems can turn into something much, much worse. Lately, things haven't been great between me and Daniel. He's always busy, and I feel lonely. I've tried talking to him about it, but he just says he's tired and needs to focus on his career. My friends have problems too, but we don't talk about them. Ryan has been acting extra flirty lately, and it's starting to make me uncomfortable. He's always been a little too much, but now it feels like he's pushing boundaries even more. Chris has been quieter than usual. He used to check in with me all the time, but now he barely says a word. I can tell something's bothering him, but he won't talk about it. Jake is still making jokes, but they don't feel as funny anymore. It's like he's trying too hard to make everyone laugh, but no one's in the mood. Liam, who's usually so dependable, has been pulling away. He doesn't show up to group events as much, and when I ask him why, he just says he's busy. Even Daniel seems different. He's still kind and caring, but there's a distance between us that wasn't there before. We don't talk as much, and when we do, it feels like we're just going through the motions. I want to fix things, but I don't know how. Every time I try to talk to someone, the words get stuck in my throat. One day, Ryan suggested we all go on a trip together. "Let's rent a big beach house for the weekend," he said. "It'll be fun, just the 6 of us, hanging out, relaxing, and catching up. First, I thought it was a great idea. We hadn't all been together in a while, and I thought it might help us reconnect. But as the trip got closer, I started to feel nervous. What if things got worse? What if something went wrong? But I didn't say anything. I just packed my bags and hoped for the best. The beach house was beautiful. It had big windows that looked out at the ocean, and the air smelled like salt and sunscreen. The sound of the waves crashing on the shore was so calming, and for a little while, I forgot about all the problems we'd been having. The first day was amazing. We swam in the ocean, played volleyball on the beach, and had a big barbecue dinner. That night we sat around the fire pit, laughing and telling stories. Felt like old times, and for a little while I thought maybe everything would be okay. But then someone suggested we play truth or dare. I should have said no. I should have known it was a bad idea. But I didn't. I just went along with it like I always do. The game started harmless enough. Silly dares like singing a song or doing a silly dance. But then things started to change. The dares got riskier, the truth got darker, and the mood shifted. I could feel the tension in the air, like a storm brewing just out of sight. Ryan was the one who started it. He dared Chris to kiss me. I laughed it off at first, thinking it was just another one of Ryan's jokes. But then I saw the look in Chris's eyes, a mix of hesitation and something else I couldn't quite place. My heart started to race, and I felt a knot form in my stomach. "Come on, it's just a dare," Ryan said, his voice teasing but with an edge I didn't like. I looked at Daniel, hoping he'd say something, but he just shrugged and smiled like it was no big deal. That's when I knew something was wrong, but I didn't stop it. I didn't say no. I just sat there, frozen as Chris leaned in. The kiss was quick, just a peck on the lips, but it felt like it lasted forever. When Chris pulled away, his face was red, and he wouldn't look at me. I could feel my cheeks burning, and I glanced around the circle to see how everyone else was reacting. Ryan was grinning like he'd just won a prize. Jake was laughing, but it sounded forced. Liam was staring at the fire, his expression unreadable. And Daniel. Daniel was still smiling, but it didn't reach his eyes. "All right, my turn," Ryan said, breaking the awkward silence. He turned to me, his eyes glinting with mischief. "Ella, truth or dare?" I should have chosen truth. But for some reason I said, "Dare." Ryan's grin widened. "I dare you to kiss me." The air felt heavy, like the moment before a thunderstorm. I looked at Daniel again, hoping he'd step in, but he just shrugged and said, "It's just a game, Ella." My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. I didn't want to do it, but I didn't want to ruin the fun either. So I leaned in and kissed Ryan. It was different from the kiss with Chris. Ryan didn't pull away right away. He lingered just for a second, and when he finally did, he winked at me. I felt sick to my stomach. The game kept going, but I barely remember what happened next. I know there were more dares, more truths, and more laughter that didn't feel real. At some point, Jake dared Liam to kiss me, and Liam did it without hesitation. Then it was my turn again, and I dared Daniel to kiss someone else in the group. He kissed Ryan. By the time the game ended, I felt like I was in a daze. My head was spinning, and my heart felt heavy with guilt. I kept telling myself it was just a game, and that it didn't mean anything. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. When we finally went to bed, I couldn't sleep. I lay there next to Daniel, staring at the ceiling and replaying the night in my head. I kept thinking about the kisses, the looks, the tension in the air. I knew something had shifted between us, something we couldn't take back. The next morning, I woke up feeling strange. My head hurt a little, and my stomach felt heavy like I'd eaten too much candy. But it wasn't just my body that felt off. My mind was racing, and my heart felt like it was carrying a big weight. I looked over at Daniel. He was still asleep, his face calm and peaceful. For a moment, I thought maybe last night had just been a bad dream. But then I remembered the game, the kisses, the tension. It wasn't a dream. Happened. I got out of bed quietly and went to the kitchen. Everyone else was already there, sitting around the table and eating breakfast. But something felt different. Ryan was quieter than usual, poking at his food instead of making jokes. Chris was staring at his plate, not saying a word. Jake was trying to be funny, but his jokes fell flat. Liam was polite but distant, and Daniel was acting like everything was fine, but I could tell he was upset. "Morning, Ella," Ryan said, trying to sound cheerful. But his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Morning," I mumbled, grabbing a piece of toast. I didn't feel like eating, but I didn't want to draw attention to myself either. We all sat there, eating in silence. It was so quiet you could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Normally our group was loud and full of energy, but today it felt like we were strangers. Finally, Jake broke the silence. "So, last night was fun, huh?" No one said anything. Ryan glanced at me, then quickly looked away. Chris kept his eyes on his plate. Liam cleared his throat and stood up. "I'm going for a walk," he said, grabbing his jacket and heading out the door. The rest of us sat there, not knowing what to say. I wanted to talk about what happened, to explain that it was just a game and that it didn't mean anything. But every time I opened my mouth, the words got stuck in my throat. After breakfast, we all went our separate ways. Ryan and Jake went to the beach. Chris stayed in his room, and Daniel and I cleaned up the kitchen. "Are you okay?" Daniel asked, his voice soft. I nodded, but I didn't look at him. "Yeah, I'm fine." He didn't say anything else, but I could feel him watching me as I wiped down the counters. I wanted to tell him the truth, to say I was sorry and that I didn't mean for things to go so far. But I didn't know how. Later that day, we all got together for lunch. It was a little better than breakfast. But the tension was still there, like a dark cloud hanging over us. We tried to act normal, laughing and talking like nothing had happened. But it felt forced. By the time we left the beach house, the air was thick with unspoken words. We hugged goodbye and promised to see each other soon. But I don't think any of us believed it. On the drive home, Daniel was quiet. I kept glancing at him, trying to figure out what he was thinking, but his face was hard to read. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Are you mad at me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer right away. He just kept his eyes on the road, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. "Daniel," I said again, my heart pounding. He sighed. I don't know, Ella. I don't know what to think. And that's when I knew things were never going to be the same. After we got home from the beach house, things didn't get better. They got worse. At first, we all agreed to keep what happened a secret. We didn't want anyone outside the group to know, and we hoped that if we just pretended it never happened, everything would go back to normal. But keeping such a big secret was hard. Every time I saw Daniel, I felt a knot in my stomach. I wanted to tell him the truth, but I was too scared. What if he got mad? What if he didn't forgive me? I tried to act normal around him, but it wasn't easy. We still went on dates and spent time together. But there was a distance between us that hadn't been there before. I could tell he was upset, but he didn't want to talk about it. The group chat, which used to be full of jokes and plans, was now mostly silent. When someone did text, it was short and awkward, like they didn't know what to say. Ryan, who used to send funny memes every day, barely said a word. Chris, who always checked in to see how everyone was doing, disappeared completely. Even Jake, who was usually the life of the party, seemed different. He still made jokes, but they didn't feel funny anymore. It was like he was trying too hard to make everyone laugh. But no one was in the mood. I felt like I was carrying a heavy weight everywhere I went. Every time I thought about what happened, my chest felt tight, and I had to remind myself to breathe. One night, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to talk to someone about what happened, even if it was hard. So I called Jake. "Hey, Ella," he said when he picked up. His voice sounded tired. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "How are you?" "I'm okay," he said, but I could tell he wasn't. "What's up?" I took a deep breath. I wanted to talk about what happened at the beach house. There was a long pause. Then Jake sighed. "Yeah, I've been thinking about that too. Do you think we should talk to the others?" "Yes. Maybe if we all sit down and talk about it, we can fix things." Jake didn't answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "I don't know, Ella. I think some things might be too broken to fix." His words made my heart sink. I wanted to argue to say that we could work through this if we just tried, but deep down, I was afraid he might be right. Few days later, Ryan texted the group chat. "Hey everyone, let's meet up for dinner tonight. We need to talk." My stomach twisted as I read the message. Part of me was relieved that we were finally going to talk about what happened, but another part of me was scared. What if things got worse? What if we couldn't fix this? That night, we all met at our favorite restaurant. It was weird seeing everyone together again. Ryan looked nervous. Chris was quiet. Jake was trying to act normal, and Liam seemed distant. Daniel sat next to me, but he felt miles away. We ordered food and made small talk, but the tension was thick. Finally, Ryan couldn't take it anymore. "Okay," he said, putting down his fork. "We need to talk about what happened at the beach house." No one said anything. And I thought maybe he'd understand how I was feeling. I called him one evening, my hands shaking as I held the phone. "Hey, Ella," he said when he picked up. His voice sounded tired, like he hadn't been sleeping much. "Hey," I said, trying to sound calm. "Can we talk?" There was a pause. Then he said, "Yeah, I think we need to. We met at a park near his house. It was a sunny day, but the air felt heavy like a storm was coming. Chris was sitting on a bench when I got there, staring at the ground. Sat down next to him, not knowing where to start. Finally, I said, "I'm sorry, Chris, for everything." He didn't look at me. "I'm sorry too, Ella. I never meant for things to get so complicated. Do you think we can fix this?" I asked, my voice trembling. Chris sighed. "I don't know. I want to, but I don't know if it's possible." His words hurt, but I knew he was being honest. We sat there for a while, not saying much, just watching the kids play on the swings. It felt nice, even if it wasn't the same as before. Next, I decided to talk to Ryan. He'd been avoiding me since the dinner, and I wanted to know why. I found him at his favorite coffee shop, sitting alone with a cup of coffee. He looked surprised when he saw me, but he waved me over. "Hey, Ella," he said, forcing a smile. "Hey," I said, sitting down across from him. "Can we talk?" He nodded, but he didn't look happy about it. "I'm sorry, Ryan," I said, "for everything that happened. I never meant for things to get so messed up." Ryan sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry too, Ella. I know I pushed things too far. I didn't think about how it would affect everyone else. Do you think we can fix this?" Ask, hoping he'd say yes. Ryan looked at me, his eyes sad. "I don't know, Ella. I want to, but I think it's going to take a lot of time." His words made my heart ache, but I knew he was right. Finally, I decided to talk to Daniel. He'd been distant since the beach house, and I missed him. Missed us. One night after dinner, I sat down next to him on the couch. "Daniel," I said, my voice soft. "Can we talk?" He looked at me, his eyes tired. "Yeah, Ella, we need to." I took a deep breath. "I'm sorry for everything. I never meant to hurt you. I love you, and I want to fix this." Daniel sighed and looked away. "I love you too, Ella, but I don't know if we can just go back to the way things were." "What happened?" "It changed things." Tears filled my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. "I know, but I want to try. I want to make things right." Daniel didn't say anything for a long time. Finally, he nodded. "Okay, let's try." It wasn't a perfect answer, but it was a start. After talking to Chris, Ryan, and Daniel, I realized something important. Fixing things wasn't going to be easy, but it was worth trying. Chris and I agreed to take things one day at a time. We didn't know if our friendship could go back to the way it was, but we promised to be honest with each other and not let things get so complicated again. Ryan and I decided to give each other some space. He admitted that he'd pushed things too far and needed to work on being a better friend. I told him I appreciated his honesty, and we agreed to check in with each other every now and then. Daniel and I started going to therapy together. It was hard at first, talking about our feelings, admitting our mistakes, but it helped us understand each other better. We still had a long way to go, but we were committed to making things work. As for the rest of the group, things were still a little awkward. We didn't hang out as much as we used to, and when we did, it wasn't the same. But that was okay. We were all trying to figure things out, and that took time. One day, I decided to write a letter to everyone. I didn't send it, but it helped me put my feelings into words. Dear friends, I'm sorry for everything that happened. I never meant to hurt anyone, and I know I made mistakes. But I also know that we're all human, and humans make mistakes. What's important is that we learn from them and try to do better. I love you all, and I'm grateful for the memories we've shared. Even if things aren't the same, I'll always cherish the good times we had together. Love, Ola. Writing the letter made me feel lighter, like I'd finally let go of some of the guilt I'd been carrying. I knew things would never be exactly the way they were before, but that didn't mean they couldn't be good in a different way. One sunny afternoon, I went for a walk in the park. As I sat on a bench, watching the kids play and the birds fly by, I realized something. Life is full of ups and downs, but it's how we handle them that matters. I didn't have all the answers, and I knew I'd make more mistakes in the future. But I also knew that as long as I tried to be kind, honest, and true to myself, I'd be okay. And that's how my story ends. Not with everything fixed, but with hope for a new beginning.